Tech it up using lessons that you already have, but adding in a tech twist. Before we get started in the ways that you can change what you're already doing, there are 3 questions I want you to ask yourself when you look at what you got. When you're looking at the lessons that you already have and possibly want to make them technology relevant, is your lesson engaging? If the lesson is already boring on paper, most likely it's probably still going to be boring on the computer. So really analyze the things that you're doing with the kids. Next, to ask yourself, is the lesson still relevant? Meaning, is the lesson still a standard that is related to the grade level you teach? Or is it just something really fun that you just like to do with kids? And last of all, is the work that you're doing with kids meaningful? Are you teaching something that they can connect with and really have a great takeaway? Or is it just some busy work that you just want to get through? So why in the world does it even matter? So when you have those lessons that you look at, why does it even matter to make them techie? Well, in the long run, of course, not everything has to be technology, but in the long run, you really do have less prep work. It's going to take you less time to get it ready and to pass out, and less work for you to take home, and you can actually relax. Your teacher bag can really be empty at the end of each day, and you don't need to feel guilty about it because you're doing the prep work ahead of time and getting it all done when you're at school. If you're regularly implementing tech lessons, students will be building basic technology problem-solving skills. They'll know what to do when the page doesn't load, or if the view of their document isn't super great. The more you use it, the better they will be at technology problem-solving. And of course, you're developing their 21st century skills. Technology isn't going to go away, so we need to help build those skills for them to be successful in future years of school, but also when they leave our school walls. Here are some tools to use. These aren't all the tools, but when you're looking at the tools, make sure you're using ones that work on multiple devices. So if your school has iPads, MacBooks, Dells, Chromebooks, use tools that can be used on pretty much all of them. Also, when you're picking tools to share things with kids, something that will create copies for kids is really helpful. That's one less step for them to say, oh, make a copy or save it here or download it here. So a tool that will already do it for you is well worth your time. And also, you don't have to use the same tool for everything. Mixing it up and having 3 or 4 main tools that you integrate within your work is really great for kids to know how to transfer skills to multiple platforms. And also, they have many ways to do one thing. Some of my favorite tools that I use over and over again and suggest to others is the Google Education apps for kids, Seesaw, and also Epic Books. Follow those 3 criteria for the tools I like to use. So when you're looking at what you already are doing, you have the curriculum that you have to teach. Here are actually 6 things that you can do with kids and update what you're already doing in your class. First of all, you can update your cut and paste, labeling, definitions, and matching types of activities. You can also update your student feedback, your student checklist, rubrics, and goal setting, the way students explain their work, collecting formative assessments and exit tickets, and your small groups and differentiation. So as we go through these things, they're all made digital in a different way. Paper and pencil isn't necessarily taken away, but even sometimes the way you collect the work can be digital. First of all, we have our cut and paste, labeling, definitions, and matching types of activities. This is the easiest one to replace. There's nothing wrong with cutting paper or gluing. I think that's a wonderful skill to still have. But sometimes, just for the sake of time, you can switch it up. You can actually, if you're looking at your stuff you already have, you can make really good worksheets digital. 2 ways that I do this is with my phone. I actually take a picture of the worksheet, or I just go into the copy room and scan worksheets that I already have and make them digital. Also, what's great about this is I have a digital filing box, so I can do any lesson planning at home if I want to and not even worry about going into school. Text boxes are your best friend, so you can use text boxes for anything and really helps with that labeling and definitions and all of that. And what I love the most is printing in color, and that's not always a possibility, but if you're making basic worksheets you already have colored, or you take a picture and they're colorful, or like students can make them colorful, it's just so much fun. Here's an example that I've done with just that. Here's a worksheet that I've had and I just scanned it in. It's nothing fancy by any means. However, instead of making a packet with all of these pages, I can have students practice their text skills. So what they had to do, for example, is they have to use these words and they have to label the map. Now, the words up here, I did this when I showed this to the kids. I said, okay, pull the words down. And they really can't because they have to do a little bit of work. They actually have to go and create a text box, and then they have to write in the word that they need to label. And then this is an extra tip. They can highlight and make the word bigger, smaller. And this actually helps them practice resizing things, changing the font. All sorts of little text skills are actually embedded in this task that weren't there before when I had this on a paper assignment. Again, they have to label this one. This one, they have to draw lines to match. This one is creating, they can insert images or they could use shape tools to create these things. So little text skills are embedded within this digital worksheet that wouldn't have been there before if they were just doing it paper and pencil. Student feedback is also something that you can enhance with technology. This can be for individual students or even small groups. Sometimes when I would do writing conferences, as everybody had the same thing to work on, I would record myself teaching that little writing conference and then share it with students digitally through Google Classroom, Seesaw, Schoology, whatever you use. That way, if kids were absent who were supposed to be in that group, they could hear everything that I said. Or it also helped kids who were in that group that day, and they could go back and listen to my feedback to help them continue their goal. Like I said, it's continuous reference. This is also a great home connection. So when you're giving feedback digitally, whether it's recording yourself, audio, or if you're typing your feedback, and if you have parents connected with your digital platforms, they can use the same language that you're using with their kids to help them with their work at home. It's also, there are different avenues for sharing, like I had said, audio, video, or even typing. Here are a couple ways that you can do this. Writing in a notebook, I think, is very, very important. So what I did in this little video snapshot is I had all the kids turn in their writing notebooks to me. It was either the day before or before a plan time, something like that. So I had the big stack of writing notebooks. I actually had them write in their notebooks all the time, but I still use technology every day in writing. So here's one way I did that. I read through their work, and to give them quick feedback, I could almost do 2 writing conferences. I would meet with them in person during writing workshop, but then also if I did this, I could give them digital feedback. So I'd read their work, and then I also recorded myself talking through the notes that I typed for them, and then I would share with them these digital feedback, this little screencast with them through Google Classroom, and they could refer to that as many times as they wanted. So I'll play a little bit for you for this feedback that I gave a student. And I have her notebook right in front of me.
And I read your story, The Glass is Shattering.
I wrote shattering right here. This is how you spell it, with T's. And so I'm going to give you some feedback on your writing about what you did well and some things you need to work on. So what you did well is I made this in Google Slides, by the way, and this is just a big box I put over the work, so then I reveal what I want at a certain time. By the way, cuckoo clock in the background, if you were curious what that is. So I really know, actually, no, it's not action lead. Sorry, snapshot lead. And so you took a snapshot of what was happening in that moment and what all the characters were doing at that time. Also, you did a great job telling the story bit by bit and every part of the story, the beginning, middle, and end. So here's some things I want you to work on. So you get the point of that. And what I did for what students need to work on is that I wrote down what they needed to work on. They had to change it, and then they actually had to underline the change in a color. So then when I re-looked at their work and I looked back at the notes, I made sure that they were paying attention. All right. Student checklists and rubrics is also another way that you can make digital. What's really awesome is if you are using these consistently with students, it's always in one place that they can find that checklist right away. It's not stuffed in a folder. It's not falling on the floor without a name. They can always access that in one place. Also, with digital checklists, you can have students attach artifacts. So maybe it's a website that they use to research to find information. Maybe they took a picture in Seesaw so they can link that picture in the checklist. Maybe they did some audio in a different app so they can link that in there. So it's a really cool way that you can collect the work that they're doing in one place that you couldn't do with a piece of paper. Depending on how you do this, this could be the beginnings of a digital online portfolio. It is just one checklist page, so it would be a little bit different than that, but they're getting used to collecting the work that they're doing along the way. Here would be an example for just a little project I did in class with students. This would just be a one page. What's really great is that the boxes will grow. So students can actually type in these boxes if they wanted. They could change the color of the box if they wanted. So let's say they think they're right here. They could fill it in. I can actually, what's cool about this too is I can add little digital sticky notes, comments along the way. So let's say I want to comment on them being a 2. I can leave a little comment right there. So great way to keep track and collect information along the way. This was just a checklist for a project, but to help make sure they have all the components for their presentation. Another way that you could do this could be almost like a journal type of way of keeping track, is students can add to this. This is for a small group that I'm leading, but students can add at the end of class and keep progress of their work along the way. I did add a column for those artifacts like I talked about, and this is just basically what we did either as a group or individually, and then help students set goals for the next time. And for this small group, students can work at home if they would like to. They don't have to, but it also helps parents see the work that they're doing and hold students accountable for their thinking. You also can make student explanations digital as well. And this could be a whole different range of things. You can have students draw their thinking. You can have students insert images to show their thinking. You can have students take pictures of drawings that they've done. So, like I said, I think paper and pencil is still really great, but the way you collect that work can be digital. You can have students explain their thinking through a video. You can also explain it through just audio. Some kids are a little bit more shy and don't want to show their face, so audio is a great option, or even typing. So the way students explain things doesn't always have to be handwritten. You can hear their voice in a different way. Here it would be an example. So I had students write in their math notebooks all the time. I really wanted them to draw to show their thinking. This was really, really hard for my third graders. But what they did is they would take a picture of their work from the day and then just record their voice explaining their thinking.
The problem I solved today is how can 3 people share 5 rabbits? What I did.
One thing to help students, if you do this version, is you can hear that she pauses a little bit when the way she explains this. I would write on the whiteboard sentence stems of the way I wanted them to explain their problem. The reason why I did that is that if they did eventually type their thinking, it would be the same format every time. So they explained the problem they did and use transition words in their explanation. So this really helped transfer to their writing as well. So using those sentence stems. I also love how I could hear their thinking. This is also something you can do for writing. So oftentimes I would have kids take a picture of their work, just like you had seen there for math, but take a picture of their writing. And instead of doing author's chair, where everyone is sitting there really restless, listening to maybe 1 or 2 kids, I still would do that. However, I would switch it up and have kids listen to each other's work on the platform I used Seesaw. So I had kids listen to each other's work and then comment with their thinking, one thing they did well, one thing they need to work on. And they actually could listen to more kids' work by doing it that way. You also could do whatever it is, writing or something else. You could do a silent audio museum. So students can have their work pulled up on their computer, have headphones attached, and then students rotate to the computers and listen to the work that's being shared. You also can techify your formative assessments and exit tickets. Depending on what you're using, you can do automatic grading. So if it's just a quick check-in, that's probably all you need, like just for an exit ticket. The way you set up a Google form, it can automatically grade it for you. Other things like quizzes or Kahoot or Plickers, the way you set it up beforehand, it can grade it as well. Also, again, however you set it up, you can give immediate feedback to students in class discussions. Depending on your purpose of it, is your exit ticket to make a small group? Is your exit ticket to give feedback? Are you even sharing the information? So it just depends on your purpose of that. But if you do that little pre-planning, it will save you time in the long run. And this is just a quick little thing. No more little papers to keep track of. Those drive me nuts. I don't like little papers floating everywhere. So if we did a sticky note exit ticket, I'm like, all right, you're taking a picture in Seesaw and then go recycle it. So they still have that contact with the paper. They have the little sticky note. They can put it on my poster or whatever. But then I don't have to worry that it's lost. It's all in one place for me. Here's another example. It is another math one. It looks very similar to the last one, but this was actually a math game that the kids played. So our curriculum had a lot of games they had to play to show their thinking and then demonstrate the skill. So to make sure that they were playing the game correctly, they understood the purpose of it, I had them keep track on a whiteboard or notebook, and then they had to explain to me what they did and how they played the game. You also can tech up your small groups and differentiation. It's a lot like the student feedback. However, it's a way for you to check in with students who aren't in your group. So you can pre-record lessons or even re-record or record when you're teaching a little lesson and send it to specific kids. Some platforms that you can send things to specific kids, for example, would be Google Classroom, Seesaw, Epic Books. You can share certain books with kids. So that way you are really guiding what you want for them. Again, you can easily share group materials. When you're differentiating, the materials, there's just so much involved and there's so many papers and the storage and where do you go to find this? How do you do this? So you can easily share group materials with kids if you simplify it and make it all digital in one place. And I'll show you a couple examples. Again, you can extend this option at home. So if kids need different homework, and you can differentiate your homework digitally if you really even wanted to go there, which works out great, trust me. If you want questions about digital homework, I'm happy to explain that for you. Choice menus are awesome. Like you can have that poster up on the board, but those can be a lot of paperwork too. So if you go digital with those choice menus, you will have less paperwork and less prep in the long run. So if you're thinking about those digital menus and differentiating them, here's an example I would do for different units. So you notice there are 3 menus and they look pretty much the same. They have different colors. Notice how they all have the same topics. However, each menu has a star. So this is how I would send out menus for kids. Everyone had the same categories. Depending on the class, I could said, all right, you can choose any of the tasks you would like to do in here. Or some classes needed more guided choice. All right, you can choose from 1 and 2 today. Everyone had the same topics, but they had the different work. So a 1 star would mean this would be my students who needed more practice. A 2 star would be my students at grade level, and then a 3 star would be something with extensions. Now, I don't know if it'll let me open it up since with my share settings, but when I had click here for directions, sometimes those directions, you can actually, would be typed. Sometimes the directions would be a video that I made. For worksheets, I had to train kids, but these ones were worksheets, and students had to open up the worksheet on the computer, and then they would solve it in their notebook. So instead of me making a million copies, they just knew that they had to write that in your notebook. Sometimes they would be a little game, so the recording sheet might be something else I have in the classroom. But this was so much easier for me to keep track of and for kids to keep track of for those math options. Also, one of my most favorite ways for small groups and differentiation is using audio recording or screencasting for that test prep. Meaning, I had a class where 8 kids, I'm not exaggerating, 8 kids needed the test read aloud to them. Now, for math, everybody works at a different pace. And I didn't want kids to feel pressured that they had to go at the same speed as everybody just because I was reading it out loud to them. So what I would do, and I took silly pictures just for fun, is I just took a picture of me holding the first page, and then I would just record in Seesaw myself reading the test. Remember to write your name in today's. I'm really just reading it. So this was really helpful. I would share this document with kids in Google Classroom just to the specific kids who needed it. And it was just a practice in my room that everybody gets what they need to do their best learning. Some of us might be on the computer, some might not be, just depending on what we're doing, but we're all trying our best and working hard. So there would be students during the math test, and of course you're walking around, making sure everyone's staying on task, doing what they're supposed to do. But those kids had way less anxiety and stress when doing these math tests because they could go at their own pace. Another way that you can do this, and this is like the best thing I ever had thought of for myself, is spelling tests. I did the same thing. Whether our spelling tests were differentiated or everyone was doing the same, just depended on the unit, I would record myself reading the sentences and then saying them, saying the word and then saying the word again. And students, again, could go at their own pace. They can rewind if they didn't hear me the first time. But this saved me so much time. Spelling tests actually only took 15 minutes. And as students were turning those tests in, I could grade them and hand it back to them right away. So really, really great ways to techify what you're already doing. So with all of these 6 ways that we talked about, what are you going to commit to trying? What is something you would really love to integrate into what you're already doing and just boost it up a bit, make it a little bit better, make it more relevant and more just really adding that tech component can really change things up in your class. And with that, I thank you so much for your time and thank you for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and I am happy to help in any way you need it. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.